Afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Crypto Insider here with myself, Paul Sampson, on this wonderful Saturday. I've got a jam-packed episode here for you, as always. Going to be bringing you an update for Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I got a handful of altcoins today. I'm just going to actually run through, I think, about 6 to 8 of them really quickly for you. So we've got a little bit of a return rally, I guess you could call it, right in the market. We had a bit of a pullback over the course of the week, and then a pretty explosive move out of Bitcoin yesterday. So I want to cover everything that basically I'm looking at. A couple of the trades I took in the Trader's Edge crypto service at verifiedinvesting.com, and basically what we can anticipate out of Bitcoin and the crypto market for the days to come. So let's just not waste any time jumping right on into the chart here with Bitcoin to start. And basically, you can see here that we obviously had this ranging activity here, right? And we are in a new month, by the way. So happy May, everyone. And, a little bit of a psychology thing, right? As we kind of came into this time frame, we started to get a pretty decent dump. And overall, actually, I say started to, which realistically, we've seen about a 23 to 25% pullback from the overall high. And what happened is, or what tended or seemed to be happening was everyone's getting very bearish at the lows here, which, as an analyst, you obviously have to identify that when you do start breaking key levels of support or even resistance, that, yes, you could keep continuing lower. And obviously the next level is lower, but below this would have been 52K. I brought up scenarios where you could even see 43. But also you have to have that line in the sand, those levels to reclaim basically for where things can shift, right? So basically your probabilities are what we go off of, and realistically the probabilities shift often, right? So you kind of have to be willing to adapt to it. So what we have here is a really nice case of basically a bear trap, right? When you look at it like this, so far at least. And what I mean by that is we had everyone get quite bearish here. We broke a key level, right? We came down. We actually closed April just about at this region right here. So now you had basically the low for March over here and the low for April. So for 2 complete months, right, anybody that was getting long in this region here, once again, not probably many are getting long right at the low here, right, where you have a really wider stop loss than this. Anybody that was getting long in these regions, especially when we were getting above, this previous all-time high back from 2021, had been effectively stopped out of the market, or at least getting really worried when you came down to those levels, right? Because if you had just gotten into these regions, you probably would have went to go cut your position, or you'd been stopped out or liquidated, depending on some of the leverage positions. What also happened down here is we spent a lot of time down below this, right? It's not like we came down, just swept it, right, and then came back up like we tend to see a lot of times, right, where I'll look for, a key level like this. You swept it on just a little bit of a 4-hour wick or less, really like a 15 or 30 minute. And then you start a move return. You did the same thing several times down here, right? We wicked down below. You kind of had a wick really quickly, and then you swept it up. You swept it again. You ran it back. This one we spent a lot of time down here. So at any given moment in the market, there's a ton of basically traders activating trades, whether they're opening a long, opening a short, and the majority I have to imagine we're probably coming in, gotten stopped out of their position here and actually opening short positions here, right? So what that does is that you immediately get the opportunity for a short squeeze, right? So what that is that traders come in, everybody's expecting, 50K really heavily. Maybe we still get there. Maybe this was just a little bit of a dead cat bounce, which we tend to just see a little return, right? We're still not really making any new highs at the moment. I'll kind of cover these areas here in a second. But, overall, anybody that entered a short position here, right, you can imagine has already seen a 10 to 12% rally. Most likely they're stopped out of their positions or heavily underwater, right? So on top of that, anybody that sold their position down here is now 12% away from, where they got out at. And 12% move in Bitcoin is really equated to 30%, some of the altcoins and so on, right? And it's just really the name of the game. And we see this time and time again. All right. So that's kind of just where we are and how we got there essentially, right? So closed the month, swept the low, spent some time down here, got everybody really fearful. One thing I was really hammering on is, once again, the March and April low was the area that, I wanted to see reclaimed. We obviously did that, right? I know there's been a lot of news this week as well, CPI data, CPE data, and I'm just spitballing here. I don't know which ones really came out. I can't even keep track of them, right? But there was just a ton of things, non-farm payroll yesterday, I believe. Anyways, overall, the technicals were we reclaimed March and April low, right? That's where we wanted to see. From there, I was targeting up to this daily level. Originally, this was untapped, right? So I've had this marked out and, basically sent in with the Trader's Edge crypto service that this was a major target area between the May pivot, right? So this is the average of price of April. And this is also originally an untapped daily area of resistance. This was also the April naked point of control, right? So when we look at, now we have a range that we can work off of. And similar to what happened I'll go actually back really quickly to March, right? So we closed March back here, right? And then what happened in April, when April 1st started, so this is now April 1, you can see the timestamp down at the bottom. You close March, this was the March range, all right? What happened is we rotated it right away, right? So generally you get it doesn't always happen like that, I suppose, but it's just something to be aware of, right? We basically tagged the high right before we closed the month, and then we started off basically April running March's range. We rotated it once again, so on and so forth. Obviously, new moves kind of came out after that. But in short term, now that we have a new range here for April, right? Let's take a peek. This was the area that we could work off of, right? So once again, obviously we were down deviating pretty low around these levels, but you started to kind of come up and reclaim this region here. This was my first line in the sand to, really look for that next move up. We hit our head basically on the value area low. So basically on the range low, right? Coming in here at essentially the bottom of the value area for the month of April. And then we got into it. And once you get into the range, you're going to seek out that point of control, right? So that's basically where we're hitting our head right now. Could we get a pullback from here? Very well could, right? It's also the weekend right now. Locally, right? Even just looking at this from a gold pocket standpoint, we could even see a pullback all the way back down to that April low and back test it, right? So definitely not something that's not doable. It really wouldn't be a negative at the moment. Obviously, if we start to live back below these regions is really when things get a little scary, right? So otherwise, we've came up into a pretty decent target here at 64K. Could even pull back just to the value area low once again, that 61,800. We've also got the quarterly pivot that sits about 61,300, right? So in this little window here, but overall at the moment, we need to flip 64K for any more upside, right? Simple as that, right? So for me, I'm looking up to rotate this range, all right? It does come back into, once again, the 69K high from 2021, which I feel like we have spent so much time just kind of trading around that. It's offered up a ton of opportunities at this point. My eyes personally, I'm looking up to this $71,400 region, which is an untapped monthly level now, left over from last month. And then we'll see. But honestly, it just comes down to level by level at the moment. Really need to flip this region here. Don't be too scared or too surprised if we actually pull back for a technical pullback, right back to that 59K. But otherwise, I'm looking for the continuation here, right? So even, and when you're looking for continuation as well, it's important to note the 382, right? So I know I noted that's the gold pocket there, but a lot of times when you get, a move like this where people probably miss this move or, are starting to, get a little bullish again. Maybe the price actions are going to continue up, but they do remain a little patient and they wait for a better entry. The 382 is an area that I would, look for to see if we come down and hold and look at where it is, right? It's basically right at that range low, right? And then also, like I said, the quarterly pivot, which is the average of price from Q1, right? So that is coming in pretty much right at 61,300 right there. It actually is right on the 382. So that is, what would be a best case for a pullback at the moment, right? Is what you want to see is if we do pull back anymore, you come back down to that $61,300 region, right? 3,400, and then you get that continuation up. We basically come down, we back test the range low, we'd come back to our quarterly average, we'd come down to our 382. Like there's just a good amount of confluence right here that if I was looking for a new position, this is probably where I'd look to come in at between here or here, right? So thing is, I bet you many are going to be waiting on this one. So strong moves like this generally get the shallow pullback, the continuation pullback, and then that is generally at the 382. So yet to be seen. We'll have to look for it, see how things kind of react. It's the weekend, like I said, could very well just pull back, as we kind of come into the weekly close. So just something to be aware of there. All right, Bitcoin that's as simple as I can make it, right? For me, I'm looking towards that 2021 69 to 71,000 is my next major area that I'm looking for Bitcoin to just kind of return to. We've got the pullback areas to look for, and obviously if we start to lose these regions, and we all know, where we're heading, right? Probably down to that $52,000 area. Otherwise, just a little bit of a range rotation going on. Let's take a peek at these altcoins, right? So ETH, very quick overview here. I'm going to zoom it out here. I didn't get to do this on the bottom line yesterday. Hope you guys watched that. It was a fun episode. We got Dr. B on there in place of Ben Poole for a little switch up. But I did want to point out that this, and once again, almost, right? Like, so when you have a really strong uptrend, the 382 is generally where we pull back to. Personally, for multiple reasons, I actually envision that we might actually get this rollover at some point. But once again, just trading the chart for what it is for now, we are at major support at the 382. And this is the macro 382, right? So when I'm looking at this, I'm pulling a Fibonacci retracement, and I'll pull it nice and fresh for you basically, right? So Fibonacci retracement from the low from June of 2022 to the current high is where we came down to and pushed off of, right? So big level there. And then aside from that, looking at a little bit, more zoomed in, and then looking alongside with Bitcoin is that we've got the monthly range of April as well, right? So we've got a new monthly range we're working off of here. Didn't necessarily take the low like Bitcoin did. That's why it's very important for me. I constantly am looking at, anytime I'm looking at an altcoin chart, I have to look at the Bitcoin chart as well, because a lot of times, Bitcoin will hit key levels reverse, whether it's to the upside, to the downside, and altcoin sometimes could front run, right? Or sometimes Bitcoin hasn't hit that key level yet, and the altcoin could go a little further. So we got to, it's just something that unfortunately you got to be able to correlate and keep in mind. So ETH had a similar situation, right? April naked point of control. So same thing here. We re-entered the range, right? Boom, reclaim the low. What are we going to do? We're going to seek out that point of control. We've also got the average of price here. So the monthly pivot here, when I refer to a pivot, it's not like Gareth or it's not like Ben or Dr. B. I know that they're usually referring to a pivot high or a pivot low, right? Swing high, swing low is kind of how I refer to that. But for me, a pivot is the average of price of a certain time frame, whether it be a day, a week, a month, a quarter, a year. And it's just like a moving average, right? The price, a mean reversion play, the price will return to those averages. This average just doesn't move like a moving average. This is the average of price. It's generated in May. So this is the May pivot. So this is a target for May. This is deviated, or this is basically built on the average of last month. So average of last month, likely that we hit it this month is just all that is, right? So it's a monthly target for the month of May, which we're just about to come into, confluence with the April naked point of control, okay? And I'm sure there's probably a little local gold pocket there. Could be wrong. We might have already blew through that. Oh, no, actually look at it. Spot on, baby. Local gold pocket, monthly pivot, April naked point of control, all coming in right here. And it's basically where we're kind of hitting our head on. So for me, I'm still looking at Bitcoin more so than anything. Maybe we get that small pullback I just kind of highlighted, but overall I'm looking up. ETH, if we see Bitcoin kind of come into that 69K, that 71K, once again, I'm really targeting back up to this $3,600 area. For now, not getting too ahead of it. I'm just looking for a simple range rotation as well, back up to like 33. But this is ultimately where I'm looking to for the next kind of, level here on ETH in the coming, I'd really imagine probably next week, this first week of May, right? Or I guess second week of May. But yeah, other than that, we do have the April low still below us. In the big picture of things, which I don't want to, really confuse anybody, obviously, because like I said, short term, I'm looking up. So, you got an opportunity here for maybe like a 20% move if you were in ETH from those lows, even just from where we are now, 15%, maybe we pull back to the value rate low. But I'm looking for like a 15, 20% move out of ETH, 20% move out of Bitcoin, 12% of that's already been had. And that's going to lead to a pretty decent move out of the altcoins. The one thing I do want to keep in mind on more of a macro play is that, once again, the biggest reason I've been a little more cautious on certain things, pretty aggressive with taking some profits on some trades, is this pattern that is on ETH, that if ETH does, basically fulfill this target, I would imagine the whole market is in trouble, right? And that's just something we got to be aware of here. So it's a harmonic play, a sequence of Fibonacci, essentially, basically an over 2-year pattern that has played out. Came up, and there's a few specific targets for this pattern, and one of them has already been met. It's the 382. All right, and generally over time, If we come back down and start losing that, the next one is the B point of this pattern, and generally the gold pocket. In this case, they line up pretty much together. And then there's also, when I talk about the monthly average, right? This is a target for May, average of last month. Likely we hit it this month. This is the average of last year. Likely we hit it this year, right? It doesn't have to happen, but it's just likely. Okay, so something to be aware of. This could be over the summer. This could be towards the end of the year. This could not happen at all, right? Like, it's just, this is something that is really, I can't get super overly like excited about the market just going a brand new. I think we could make an all-time high at a Bitcoin. I don't know if we'd make new all-time highs and really see that like explosive bull market quite yet, that everybody's like thinking we're going to get. Once again, could be wrong, willing to change. Data changes all the time, so I'm willing to adapt to it. But at the moment, this has been my play that I've been going off of since really January, when it was starting to come into completion. I guess it's been 2 months now that it's been, pretty much topped out at here. And there's been a lot of opportunity, right? We've seen multiple bounces, multiple pullbacks. I do foresee a push up. And even if we come back up to this $3,600 target, this is still in play, right? So it's just something to really be aware of, right? We could very well just kind of come up and do one of these. You got still a solid downtrend in ETH, right? So this is one thing to really be aware of, is that this is a really big downtrend that's super confirmed, right? And when you're looking at it, could be a bull flag, could be a falling wedge, and it could, very well break out, and retest and continue up. But at the moment, you got to treat it as what it is, right? You got a high, you got your low, lower high, lower low. Even coming up right into this $3,600 target, that would still be potentially lower high, and then we could make that move down, right? So that's very much what I am keeping an eye on, right? I'm not predicting that that's going to happen. I just am aware that this is a very active pattern right now that has really, really big targets down below. So, and just so like an overview here, granted, like we're already halfway there. This would be about a 50% retrace out of ETH, which overall would be, like I said, you'd see, we already seen what happened to the altcoins on just this pullback, right? 30%. Imagine if we actually push up into 3,600, and I'm just doing for instance, right? Just something to be prepared on. And that'd be a 44%. You'd almost eat that whole pullback at that point. If we get it, big ifs all across the board. But I'm preparing myself to, really pay attention to the reaction here. If we start to live above this, get into these regions, and realistically get above this high, then hey, things change. This target was all that this pattern is going to hit, and it's going to continue, right? Like that's how we'll look at it, right? And same thing, right? The overall shallow pullback, 382, you get your continuation. That is very well what could happen. Otherwise, it really does just come down to short-term burst. We're getting these push-ups. We can get a pullback, and just got to be prepared for it. So hope that makes sense. Let's take a look at some altcoins we've had some fun with this week, right? So Arrow was one that I alerted for a buy order, right? As we came into this gold pocket here, right at about 87, 88 cents. Maybe it was 89. I did take profits on it already. It was like a 39% win, I think it was. I'm pretty sure we got an 89, give or take, and got out of 124, something like that, right? So about 40%. Very well could continue up towards these other areas here. That could be like a 100% mover. For me, I was 40%. It was like one day. I was happy with it. Moved on. This is the Aerodrome, a new coin, so high risk, in the sense of just, this very well could melt back down to the lows. It's just something that's super volatile at the moment. So this is not something to be throwing huge capital into by any means, but it's a mover, and it's on Coinbase, right? It's not something that's on like a sketchy exchange. Velodrome is a new one as well. I'm gonna take off some of these. Actually a little underwater on this one personally, right? I got in like 17, maybe 18 cents, I think. So it is a little bit down. One thing about this specifically is looking for this really to kind of reclaim this region, because otherwise, could see some trouble here, right? Because we are back in a pretty, oh, actually it's not, sorry. Must have got bumped up there. All right. So we have this overall range, right? That just, once again, not too much data on this. Is only back from like February. I did see a couple people asking about these two specifically. That's why I wanted to cover them. But very new. It's hard to say how they're going to react, right? These are almost like buy and holds with like very small, like I almost call it like lunch, like beer money, right? Like you just something that you can almost just throw away, right? If it plays out great, otherwise like lower is probably, still in the cards here over time. So looking for maybe a little push up into the 20 cents area. Maybe this starts to continue upward. We do have some, trend-based areas we could look to if you start making new highs, but really just kind of pulled back. You get a little bounce off the range high here, it looks like, and then looking to see how this kind of reacts here. But it hasn't had as well as, move as the Aerodrome. And I bring those two up together because they're like always thought of in the same category for some reason. Dogecoin, another one personally, a little underwater on my position, got in around 17 cents overall. It looks like it back tested that level today. I didn't DCA to it, as we kind of came down, just kind of for is what it is. I was just, kind of looking to see how we react at these regions. I'm sure many were probably looking at this as a head and shoulders with a potential breakdown. So kind of a similar, situation with like a bear trap almost. Came down, took the lows, right? Basically came into this gold pocket, and then just ran it, pretty much right back up. So we'll see how things kind of, look to hold on Dogecoin here. We want to see it holding over this Q4 22 high, right? They just come through and take all these highs though. So, pull back potentially in the cards, and, alongside Bitcoin as well. Overall, looking to see if we get back up to like 18, 19, and 21 is a big target for me. Obviously, 25 and 30 if things really get cooking. But for now, I'm really just going to be paying attention for these two here. Like I said, my position I'm in currently, it's in about 17 cents average. So I'll probably look to get out at like these two if we reach them. Solana may have a good move coming here. You can see almost like a potential double bottom here, but really I'm just looking at this as the last monthly range. Actually took a trade on this as well, and the Trader's Edge program is also alerted at 128. A little aggressive target. Take profit for that was at 141 right here as we came into the daily, but otherwise, maybe we rotate this range, kind of come back out of it. I think that was like a 10% move, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, basically just a little bit of range rotation here, looking for 160 to get claimed for any more upside. Otherwise, just kind of ranging around this region, nothing too crazy. XRP, everybody likes to know about XRP. Still really just living in La Vida Loca here, right? So came down, basically took all the lows here, back in the range, just really hanging around the bottom here. You can almost, consider that a little double bottom as well around these regions, and still just looking to see if we get that range rotation back up to the high. And if we do break this, still looking for that 95 to $1 area. It's definitely a patience play. But yeah, XRP is at least not like crashed as I say. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see how far it pulled back. 35%. So in comparison, it really didn't like take as big of a hit on the big drops like the rest of the altcoin market. A lot of them because this is where we were at on XRP when Bitcoin like started the descent. Basically, I know we've had a higher area, but it kind of held pretty much. Don't know what that means necessarily in this compared to anything, but just held up a little bit better. Also didn't have any kind of major gains to really give back up like some of the other altcoins did. But yeah, like I said, as far as a technicality here, like I'm still just looking at this as a major range. Lows are where you want to be picking up any at, and looking to run it towards that dollar area there. These are more like meme type of plays. This one actually isn't available on Coinbase. I try to like at least cover everything that's on like a Coinbase market, so I apologize about this one. I just did want to cover this one as well. It is a big mover, right? So it's like when you look at Dogecoin as well, and probably not the biggest investment plays by any means. Like I'm not looking to buy and hold dog with hat, which is what this is called, for years by any means. But on as a trader, this is I've already traded this twice, literally both of these bounces. This one, I think I bought it at the same price both times, 247. I think we took it up to like 3 something. It was about a 30%, 40% win. Bought it again at 247, and I took it up to this. I did not take it to the daily level, but was targeting there. Once again, I think I just got a little aggressive with it. I think it just took like 11 or 12%, somewhere in like this 275, 280 range. But these are good ones to look for when you have big pullbacks in the market, when they come down to key levels, when the market recovers. I mean, this is already something that, this is 50%, right? Not something I would throw big capital into, just in the sense of, could this roll over 70%? Yes. So like that's the risk in some of these, right? So I guess any crypto could do that at any point. Polkadot covered yesterday on the bottom line. Just kind of wanted to touch on it again. Big range here, a little double bottom back in the range area. Point of control just above us. And I'm looking honestly to see if we run this up once and for all back up to this like $10 region. And that would be like a 30% move if we get it, right? So needs to claim that 763 first to get up into that area. But that's what I'd be looking for. Last one I think I'm going to cover here is Sushi Swap. Covered it a few weeks ago, took a pretty big hit with the market a couple weeks back with Bitcoin, right? So still pretty much just trading at the low end of this range. Now there is a stink bid well below us. And what that means is like, when the market just kind of, sometimes you can set some of these for like a key level that, is well far away, but sometimes you get them, right? Like where it's like, that's like a 40% drop if you get it. Really wouldn't be looking for that unless you start closing, daily candles below these regions here. But otherwise, back in the range, holding the low, getting a little bounce. Yearly open back at 120. And even if you just rotate this range once again, right, there's a ton of upside for Sushi once we really break this area. And the key for me is really flipping this quarterly pivot all the way up here. We, did not make it there quite yet. Otherwise, it's just really just ranging around, right? So, all right, I really hope you all enjoyed this, pretty rapid fire rundown. I like to try to go over, a couple of coins every week. Obviously, this week we just had a really nice, a little bit of volatility to kind of cover a good span of things. Got into a little bit longer than I anticipated here. So, hope you all enjoyed this episode. Cheers, and until next time, everybody, enjoy your weekend.